This is the Din family genogram. The first person that I will talk about is my dad. So right here is my dad, Don. He is a male. He passed away in 2008. Um, he was diagnosed with cancer October 2008, and he ended up passing away November 2008, right on Thanksgiving. And so that's where the X is. It means that he's deceased. Obviously, the square means that he's a cisgender male. The lines that are going diagonal are is a representation that he is Vietnamese. The star here, meaning that he's a first generation immigrant. My parents immigrated from Vietnam in 1980, and they came here with literally nothing to their name. They were sponsored by my mom's brother, and they came here with nothing but just dreams and hopes for eventually having kids and having them be able to have all the opportunities that America would provide. Um, the exclamation point here represents that he did have high blood pressure. That was the only known health issue that my dad had, really. And he managed that mainly with medication. And we came to believe that it was hereditary because he did really follow a strict diet, tried to exercise and work out. My dad was fairly healthy. He was in shape, he was very active, and things like that. So when cancer struck him, it was a complete shock to us. I was 18 years old, so I was fairly young when that happened. And so there's not much that I can report on my dad because he also passed away when I was really young, and he was very guarded and very quiet and didn't want to share or talk about many emotions, especially those that revolved around grief of losing his parents, which is why I don't know much about my grandparents. And so I just knew my dad to be, the provider. He and I had a really close relationship. We loved watching sports together. Um, we loved joking around together, but we never really talked about anything too emotional or too deep because, once again, he did pass away when I was fairly young. And once I graduated from high school and stepped into adulthood, he was able to see me off to college and then pass away 2 months later. So I didn't really get the opportunity to talk about emotional things with him. And then moving on to my mom, who's also Dawn, spelled differently. She is a circle because she represents a cisgender female. My mom is also 68 years old. She has a little more health problems, and I don't know if it's because now she's older. My dad did pass away when he was 51 years old, and so it's been quite a while. So here we have the circle representing a cisgender female. And then we also have it shaded in green, which I didn't point out with my dad either, but that just represents that we're Buddhists. We were raised Buddhist. We definitely leaned more into our faith, especially when my dad passed away. So here, my mom has the diagonal lines as well. That represents that we are Vietnamese. She also has the green star here, which is the first generation immigrant. She also has the orange star here, which represents that she's a little more traditional, a lot of, expectations that she grew up um, in Vietnam. She has also put on to us as, kids, or her kids. So a lot of, respecting your elders, um, being obedient, very community based environment where a lot of our actions, we had to really think about how they would affect our family and how that would come across to our relatives. So that's what that orange star represents. The cloud here represents stress. My mom is a very stress induced, or she provides this very stress induced environment. So growing up, I was always kind of warned to be scared of a lot of things. We weren't allowed to go out and play as much because of always constantly thinking about the dangers of what can happen to us, outside on the driveway or in our neighborhood. Um, Also, just constantly, calling and worrying about, if we're our well-being, if we're okay, if we're safe. If we don't pick up on our phone calls, she stresses out even more, and then she'll contact other siblings trying to get a hold of us, and we just might be at work. So I grew up in a very stress induced environment, which I think has affected me while growing up and also made me a bit more of a worrier as well. Um, Another thing that she has, that my dad has as well, is high blood pressure. This is also hereditary for her. Just like my dad, my mom takes care of her health with eating healthy, working out. She takes like long walks. She does everything to keep herself in shape, but she still does have high blood pressure, which is also why we think or the doctor has also mentioned that it's hereditary. She also is a pre-diabetic, which is why there's this little red dot here. She is managing that with her diet and exercise so that, you know, sometimes she is considered a diabetic, other times she has it pretty well managed with her diet and exercise. The three exclamation points here is representing anxiety. My mom does have a lot of anxiety, and that she leans a lot on us kids to help her kind of monitor that and also help her cope with those symptoms that anxiety causes for her. Um, Other than that, I think that that concludes all the health issues that my mom has, or any kind of mental health issues that she may have as well. From there, my parents, they had five kids. They had my oldest sister Hannah here, who is 44 years old. She has a green star here as well because she's also a first generation immigrant. My parents had her when they fled here from Vietnam. So they were from Vietnam. They ended up going to a camp in Hong Kong. And from Hong Kong, my uncle sponsored them to America. And so in Hong Kong, traveling by boat from Vietnam to Hong Kong, my mom was pregnant with my sister. So my sister ended up being born in Hong Kong, and they stayed there for a few months. And she came here to America with my parents when she was less than 1 years old. And so that's why she still has that green star there because she was not born in America. She also has the three exclamation points representing anxiety. I think a lot of that is induced by the way that we were raised, and just being around my mom, who is naturally an anxious person, has made us anxious. She also has this orange star, just like my mom, where she has more of the traditional ideals of, respecting your elders, not talking about our emotions, because that's a sign of weakness, caring about what our relatives think and how, what we do and what we say can come off um, to anyone that's around us, including like our aunts and uncles. Just more of a traditional viewpoint. And then she also has the cloud here for just being stressed all the time as well. And I also like to say that that's because I think that's something that we've also learned from our mom, because she did wear her emotions on her sleeves when we were younger. So anytime they were stressed or anything like that, like we could definitely sense it and feel it. And I think that has played a role in how we were raised, and also how we've grown up and how we've chosen to react to certain things. We also have the exclamation point here for high blood pressure. So she did inherit that from my parents. She does have high blood pressure, and that's something that I know that she monitors with medication as well. And then we also have this little black swirly here that represents going to college close to home. So she went to Sac State, and we live about 40 minutes away from Sac State, or we grew up 40 minutes outside of Sac State. So it was fairly close to where she would come home every weekend just because that's what my mom wanted and wanted her to, be home and be present. And so she made that effort to come home every weekend. The dotted line around the circle represents a bachelor's degree. So she did graduate from Sac State with an ethnic studies degree. She's also shaded green because she's Buddhist as well. And then from there, we will go on to my second sister, Bonnie, here. I'll go back to their partners once I'm done going through all of my siblings. So, my sister Bonnie here is 43 years old. She, out of all people, I think, takes after my mom the most with being one of the more anxious ones of us all. She's really just scared of everything. She warns us about everything that's going on in the news. She warns us about any kind of health issues that she's afraid of, any kind of, anything that she hears from the news, social media, things like that. She'll freak out and she'll tell us about it. Just, she lives a very anxious life. She also has the orange star here, which she is more traditional, like I explained earlier with my sister, my oldest sister Hannah. They're very much similar in respecting your elders, caring about what other people think about your actions, emotions, all of that. Not talking about emotions, just very traditional in how they choose to react to different, situations, and they're very conservative. She also has the squiggly black line here that represents going to college close to home. She also went to Sac State, as well, but her first year she decided to move back home and go to the community college because she missed home so much. And then once she went to the community college 2 years later, she ended up transferring back to Sac State and graduating with a business degree. She has this green rectangle here, which represents second generation American. So she was born here in America. She was the first one out of all of us to be born here. She also has the cloud for stress. And like I said, I think that comes from my mom and inducing that kind of environment when we were younger. She, out of all people, is always stressed about everything, even things that have not happened. She'll stress about it and she'll text us in a group text and just kind of blow up the text message because she's so stressed out. Um, she also has the little red dot here that represents diabetes. She also struggles with that. And so that's also managed with diet and exercise for her. She's not on medication yet, like my mom, but she is managing it with food, with diet and exercise. She also has the dotted lines around her circle, which represents that she also got a bachelor's degree, as I mentioned. She got a degree in business. She has a diagonal lines as well as the rest of us because we are all Vietnamese. She's also has a green shaded circle because she grew up Buddhist as well and remains Buddhist. From there, we have my sister Pippa. She is 41 years old. This, just like the rest of my sisters, it's a circle representing a cisgender female. She also has the cloud here that represents stress. I will always go back to it where I think it's the way we were raised, where it was stress induced. So that's also why she has it as well. She has the exclamation point that represents high blood pressure. She was the first out of us kids to be diagnosed with high blood pressure, and she has been managing that with medication. She as well has the orange star that represents traditional. She has the same ideals as my other sisters, very conservative, cares about what everyone thinks in the community, respect your elders, just comes off a little more, scared to talk about your emotions and things like that. She also has the green rectangle representing second generation American. She was also born here in America. She also has the squiggly black line that represents college close to home because she also went to Sac State. And so the theme here is that all of my sisters went to Sac State because they wanted to stay close to, our hometown and my parents. And they would all come home every weekend. They also all lived together, in the same apartment when they were going to school because they were so close in age. And some of them went to community colleges and, here and there. They all lived in Sacramento around the same time and, went to school around the same time. And so they all lived together in the same apartment with their significant others as well, which I'll go into um, in a little bit. Um, she also has the dotted lines around her circle representing a bachelor's degree. She got a degree in ethnic studies and business um, when she went to Sac State. And then here goes my brother, Luke. He has a little more of an interesting story. My brother also went to Sac State, but he always said that school was never for him, and so he ended up testing it out, did not like it, and ended up dropping out. He also has the three exclamation points representing anxiety. He is definitely more quiet about it, but his anxiety, I don't think is quite induced by my mom. So much of my mom, I'm pretty sure there are. It's also because he was raised in that environment, but he's also gone through some life challenges that really has changed his transition in life. I think, especially here, we have this ribbon here that represents that he is a cancer survivor. So and in 2021, he was diagnosed with leukemia, and it was a really hard battle because it was during COVID, and so there was not much that he could really do because it's not like he could have gone outside because his immune system was compromised. We had to worry about COVID, not only COVID, but anything could have gotten him sick because um, chemo wiped out, his all his white blood cells, so he couldn't fight off any kind of infection, any kind of cold, flu, or any of those symptoms. And so we all had to be really careful. Thankfully, I ended up being a 100% match for him, and so I was able to donate my bone marrow to him, or my stem cells to him, and now it's been, his transplant was in 2021, so it's been 4 years as of June. And so he's been doing really well. He's still active. He started running again and things like that. So that was definitely something great that happened in our lives, where that he was able to beat the cancer. He also has the orange squiggly line here representing ADHD. He was diagnosed with that when he was younger, when he was in elementary. He also has the black squiggly line here only because that represents the fact that he went to Sac State, even though he didn't end up finishing because he didn't like it. He has the green rectangle here that represents second generation American. And then the squiggly purple line out here represents some college slash dropped out. The lines represent Vietnamese, and it's also shaded yellow because he is Vietnamese. Here we have me. I am a second generation American. I also have anxiety. Anxiety is definitely induced by the environment that I was raised in, not only from my mom, but my older sisters, because they are fairly older than me. So just getting them, having the pressure from all of my sisters made me even more anxious, I would say. The cloud here represents stress. A lot of what I do, I think about like how it affects my family, and so that stresses me out a lot because I constantly don't want to disappoint them. But this year was also different because I learned that as I'm getting older, I need boundaries and I need to have my own space, and so that's also been different, a different kind of stress for me. The two dotted lines around the circle represents a bachelor's and master's degree. So I got my bachelor's in political science and education at UCLA, and then I ended up getting my master's degree in education at Sac State when I moved back home. Chose to move back home after living in LA for about 10 years, because I wanted to go to grad school closer to my family and because my sisters were having their kids. I didn't want to be far and kind of miss out on their upbringing. Um, I also have the diagonal lines because I'm Vietnamese. The yellow is, I'm Buddhist as well. Um, So that really concludes, everything that I go through personally. From there, we can go on to our partners. So I'll go back to Hannah's husband, Mike. He's 44 years old. He is someone that I've known since I was a kid. They got together when they were in high school. And so they got together when they were 17, 18 years old, which means I was about 7, 8 years old. And so I see him, I've seen him like a brother. I mean, not quite so much as I will get into explaining. He is represented by a square, so he's cisgender male. He also has these diagonal lines because he is Vietnamese. He also is more traditional. He is a first generation immigrant. He is very much like my sister, to where he was born in Hong Kong as well and came to America when he was a few months old. And he has this black squiggly line because he chose college close to home as well. He also went to Sac State and lived with my sister when he was going to college. Um, he has something a little different here. He has this circle with the lines coming out, kind of like a sun that represents that he is bipolar. And this is something that he was diagnosed with, and something that we've all kind of been learning to work with as a family. Um, he has the squiggly lines here because he also didn't think that college was um, what he wanted to do. He ended up becoming a chef instead and is a really successful one now. He does have these red lines that end up meeting with me. He also has a red line that ends up meeting with my brother, and then he also has a red line here meeting with my sister Bonnie. And this represents a strained relationship. It's been really complicated, kind of handling him and his, um, you know, just his moods. And that's kind of where my struggle is, because especially because my family is traditional. A lot of what our elders say, it's like it's almost frowned upon if you if you kind of argue or fight it. And I feel like in the last few years, especially with my brother and I, we've been more vocal about how the things that he says and also things that he does is comes off very insensitive and hurtful and narcissistic. And so we both have distanced ourselves from him. We do still talk to him because we don't want our sister to be sad, which is the only reason why we keep any form of communication with him. But there is definitely some tension and a strained relationship there. My sister Bonnie and him also have a long history of just things that she's been unhappy um, with him doing and saying, and she's never fully gotten an apology for that. And it's also one of those things where he is my oldest sister's husband, and so it's almost like we just have to respect him because he's our elder. That's something that I am trying to process and work through and understanding now. It's definitely something that I don't agree with, and something that I'm working with my therapist in, creating boundaries and also speaking up when I feel things are not okay, and also just sharing my feelings and emotions to my family. Then we have my brother-in-law Joey, who's married to my sister Bonnie. He has the two dotted lines around him because he got his bachelor's at Sac State as well, which is why there's this black squiggly circle here that represents college close to home. He went to Sac State as well and lived with my sisters as well. He is 41 years old. I've also known him since my teens because my sister and Joey have gotten together since they were in high school as well. And so I see him like a brother. Joey and my relationship is completely different from mine and Mike's relationship. I see him like a brother. I respect him. He's very understanding. As you can see, he doesn't have an orange star here, so he's not traditional. He does not believe that, because you're an elder, anything that you say goes. He believes that, it's you have to respect everybody and you have to listen to what we all say. And I feel very comfortable talking about my emotions to him. Um, he has the green rectangle because he is second generation American as well. He has a square which represents cisgender male. He has the lines here because he's Vietnamese. But the only difference with Joey is that he is shaded yellow, which means that he's Catholic. He was raised Catholic. So that was a different religion from us. We didn't, or my sister didn't run into any issues with that because his parents were pretty lenient about it. And then also my parents were pretty lenient about the fact that he was Catholic. It was more important that he was Vietnamese than he was Catholic for my parents. Um, and then we have my sister's husband, Kyle, here, who's married to my sister, Pippa. He also has a square here that represents cisgender male. He has a green star here because he's first generation immigrant. He actually immigrated from Vietnam when he was 7 years old. So he does have more of a hard time with language, with just English in general, and um, can come off traditional, which is why he does have the orange star here. But he's also learned to be pretty flexible. So I am still comfortable talking to him about my emotions, just he still does have those traditional values as well. He also went to college close to home, which is why he has his black squiggly line here. Um, he has a dotted line around his square because he is also he has a bachelor's degree in accounting from Sac State as well. So he also lived with my sisters. So all three couples ended up living in the same apartment for quite a while. And they all are, very close and best friends. And so it was very much like a home environment in Sacramento that they created. But they also all came home during the weekends to be around my parents. So my brother-in-laws all spent a lot of time with my family as well. And then I have Andrew, who is my partner. We are not married, but we are in a serious relationship slash dating, which is why this dotted line is above the solid line here. I have him as a square because I wanted to show that he is a cisgender male partner, not married. He has a dotted line around the triangle, which represents his bachelor's degree in criminal justice, counseling, and sociology. And he has a little squiggly line here because he did get it from San Francisco State, which is not too far from us as well. It's probably like an hour and a half away. Um, he also has the green rectangle because he's second generation American. His parents were also immigrants from Vietnam, which also is why he has the diagonal lines here. The black dot here represents the fact that he's a veteran. So not only did he get his degree from San Francisco State, but he was also in the Army previous to that, and is a veteran. Um, he also has this red dot here because he is also a diabetic, but he manages that with diet and exercise as well. He also has the three exclamation points, which represents anxiety. A lot of that does come from the military, and that's something that he is working through in therapy. Um, and so that concludes Andrew, my partner. And now we'll go down to the third generation, which are the kids. So since we stopped at Andrew for the second generation, I'll go into his kids. And so Andrew has two daughters, Amanda, who is 16 years old. She is obviously a minor, so she has this red heart here. And then she also has this orange triangle, which represents third generation American. Um, I have the squiggly lines here around the girls only because even though we're not married, we're not quite sure we want to, get married or if that's something that we need. So I still see them as stepchildren because they've been such a big part of my life, and which is why there's these squiggly lines, a blue squiggly line around their circle. They are cisgender females. They have the diagonal lines because they're Vietnamese as well. Um, so that's Amanda, and then we have his youngest, which is Nicole. She is also represented by a circle, meaning cisgender female. She also has the blue squiggly lines representing stepchildren for me. She has the red heart representing a minor child. She also has the orange triangle representing third generation American. Nicole does have some anxiety, and that has shown, especially with more so separation anxiety. That can definitely come from a split household situation, and that's something that she is working on with developing coping mechanisms and just making sure that she has a safe environment in both homes. And so that, and she also has the diagonal lines representing that she's Vietnamese as well. And then we will go on to my nephew Harry here, who is the son of my sister Pippa and my brother-in-law Kyle. He was the first grandchild for my mom. My dad didn't get to meet him because Harry was born in 2013 and my dad passed away in 2008. Harry is a square, he is a cisgender male. He has a red heart representing a minor child. He has this the orange triangle representing third generation American. He also has this cloud because he does stress quite a bit about school. He's worried about school. He's always worried about his baseball team. He is on a travel team and he does have a pretty strict schedule with sports. And so he does share that he's stressed quite often. And so I'm not quite sure if that comes from being around my sister or anything like that, but I think he just has a stressful schedule at such a young age. And a lot of that pressure is maybe put on him by my sister and brother-in-law he's like in baseball, he's in golf, he's in basketball. He does really well in school, and so that comes along with the traditional side of just constantly, wanting to overachieve and wanting to do everything and be the best at everything, because that's also how I was raised. Um, but that completes Harry, and then lastly, I have my niece Betty, who's also represented by a circle representing cisgender females. I have the orange triangle representing third generation American. I have the red heart representing a minor child. And then Betty was also recently diagnosed with ADHD. And so she's getting support from with that. And then she also is a circle with the diagonal lines representing that she's Vietnamese. And although her dad is Catholic, they have left it up to Betty to choose her religion, and she kind of leans more towards the Buddhist practices. She loves going to temple with my mom. She loves, just all the holidays that they have there. And so I put her as green, even though it can change as she gets older.